they know their wrongdoing, and when they're caught, they're saying, "Look, I've been helping the police. I've been helping John Wedger," and I explained that I think a couple of weeks ago what happened to me with the Turkish mafia. They try and manipulate the situation and make out they're being a benefit to society and helpful because they know they're in trouble. And I think that it's Christianity of convenience for people like Russell Brand, people like Kanye West, and a few other celebrities that are sort of flying this Christian banner about. Because I just think that and it seems to be that they are caught up in this sort of offending allegation sort of world as well.
Well, John, just before you go further, that's an interesting one because a lot of people yesterday had picked up on the point that they felt like the religious arc, shall we say, was a pretext for him to try and shield himself from these sort of accusations and all of that. Do you feel sometimes that, especially when it's the same sort of faith that you have, do you feel like you've seen the weaponization of faith?
Yeah, of course. It's just convenient for them. I mean, look, he knows he's in trouble. There's no time scale to this. So he's coming out with all these sort of excuses at the moment. And he has the right to defend himself. And he needs to defend himself. Let's get this right, because out of the 5 offences, 2 of them carry a life sentence. The other 3 carry a 10-year sentence. So he's in a world of trouble. So there is a need really to sort of lay down the narrative. I mean, he's attacking the mainstream media because as much as dysfunctional as they are a conduit still for a narrative for a certain amount of the truth. And Channel 4's already done that, put it out there about this guy. I mean, he's claiming that's because he's getting near to the truth, that they're doing this, So again, they all seem to have like the Messiah complex, these people. And even tries to dress like Jesus and sort of grandstand as well. It's very, very dubious. But let's look at this guy, Wayne Couzens, the police officer who went away for the murder of Sarah Everard, right? He had assaulted Sarah Everard and abducted her and murdered her. It was premeditated. It was pre-planned. So we got 2 elements of law. We got to look at the actus rea and the mens rea. So a bit of Latin for your listeners here. So the actus rea is a physical element of offending, and the mens rea is the mental element of offending. When the 2 combined, you have got an offence. So we're going to look into the depths of this. Now, Wayne Couzens, coming back to my point here, he knew he was in trouble. And during the scuffle in which he sort of arred poor Sarah Everard and then murdered her, she had scratched his face. So what he did was he rang up his vets and he told the vet that his dog suffers from separation anxiety. And as a result, when he come home, the dog attacked him and scratched his face. Can he make an appointment for the dog to, I don't know, for whatever, some sort of mental health therapy or getting the nails clipped or whatever with the vet? But it was recorded with a professional, right? A vet, a medical professional. So he was laying down his defense before he even got charged. So he was using the vet as his insurance policy. Now, I think this is what Russell Brand, and I've been vocal about this, I haven't held back on this, is doing with his so-called Christianity as well. And again, who baptized him? Bear Grylls. So look, I know a guy.
Wait. Who baptized him? Bear Grylls.
Bear Grylls, yeah.
Bear Grylls, as in let's all nip into the woods and have a suck on each other's freaking pee for a drink.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The
Bear Grylls,
and everything has to be a big name and high profile with these people. Like I know a well-known gangster from the north who's gone to Jesus, and he got born again in a backstreet church in Brixton. When you go to Christianity, the main focus is the man Jesus Christ. Anything other than that has no status, has no rank. So again, it's all this name punching all the time. But let's look at see
what?
Yeah.
Like honestly, That's I'm flabbergasted. Like I can't even get words out. Like that is.
And look, and it's all the wealthy, the well-known. Everything about this man, his fame, the way he stands, even his address to the public. It looks like he's been laying down this insurance policy for a long, long time.
Whoa! Wait a minute. This is cultural inappropriation here, right? Are these both people from Scotland? If not, they're misappropriating my culture right now. Okay, I'm just letting you know.
Shall I tell you a funny story about Bear Grylls? Okay. Many years ago, when I was on the River Police, part of our duties was to patrol the River Thames. So I'll get myself focused centre. So on our patrol boats, and it was a very, very cold winter's morning on the Thames. So over water, when it's cold, it's double cold. So a colleague and myself, we're sort of poodling along the upper stretches of the Thames round by Battersea. And there's one of these huge Thames barges, which is a residential boat moored up on the south shore of the River Thames at Battersea. And my colleague goes, "Oh, look, what's happening over there?" And on the deck of this boat is like a tennis umpire chair. And there's a guy sat on it. And it's middle of winter. It's freezing cold. It's early in the morning. And he's shouting down at two men who looked like they were naked and they were fighting each other. So it's very odd, very weird. So we do the usual maritime stuff and we ask for permission to pull alongside, blah, blah, blah. And the guy on the umpire chair, yes, chaps, very plummy, Middle England accent. Yeah, please do, officers, come on board. And then we looked at the guys wrestling, and there's these two men in their underpants fighting each other, whilst this chap in the umpire chair shouting instructions. And he jumps down and he makes his excuses that he's teaching these chaps, in his own words, some self-defense. And of course, the guy is him, Bear Grylls, and he's instructing naked underpants wrestling on the boat on the Thames.
I mean, I'll be honest, right? If I'm being honest, most wrestling is done in your underpants, right? When you look at
you can't wrestle without underpants. Yeah, it's
right? But
that's the culture.
I mean,
and you know the first thing he said to me, he said, "I was the first man to climb Everest unaided," and that the youngest man ever. That's the first thing he said, and I couldn't get the image of two men in their pants fighting out of my head, so I wasn't really too impressed by his mountaineering capabilities. But that's the first thing that come out of that guy's mouth. I was the youngest chap to ever climb Everest, and I was in the SAS or some stuff like that.
So. Well, listen, I mean, Bear Grylls is Bear Grylls. I hope that we don't find out one day that it goes beyond him wrestling in his pants, because that'll be another one to bite the dust, shall we say?
Yeah, well, I suppose the fellas were, probably it came in handy one day whilst they're walking along, freezing cold in their pants, and someone attacks them, and they know what to do, don't they?
Well, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Grab a nipple in the belly button and just twist. Now, listen, we've got a question here from Susie, and I thought this was quite a good one, John. John, do you think there must be watertight evidence against Brand for him to have actually been...
Right. Well, let's go through this then.
All right, okay. Yeah.
Of course, there has to be standards of charging. They have to attain this. The word will come to me in a minute. The phrase will come to me. So he's got one charge of the R word. He's got one charge of indecent assault. Two charges of S assault. And one charge of oral R. Now, let me explain that, right? So, if we look at so oral R and the R1, they're life sentences. Now, they're not really different. When we look at these offences, what we know is that the times on them. So before 2004, the law was different. Before 2004, it was the Sexual Offences Act of 1956. So this is all sort of what they call retrospective. So any offence that occurred before 2004 has to go to the old 1956 legislation. So we know that the first charge, that of R, was prior to 2004. The indecent assault also was prior to that, because that's old legislation. Oral R is post. That's post 2004. So that's it's the same thing. So oral is penetration of the mouth, vagina, or anus. So any one of them, if it's penetrated by a penis, it is an offence, right? Non-consensually, okay? Because the key here is non-consensual. So no consent is alleged to have occurred, right? And we're going to look at consent as well. Now, bear in mind, there's 5 offences by 4 individuals spanning a 6-year period. So if we're looking at collusion and all that, I don't think so. You know, the chances of getting, they're historic, but it doesn't matter. So when we looked at the child offending in the big cases that came out from the ICSA inquiry, stuff was going back 50 years, and we were all hailing it as you know, a triumph for victims and survivors, even if it's 50 years ago. So what? Get them before. So the fact that he can bellyache all he wants that it's historic, it makes no difference when it comes to investigation of these offences. Anything over 72 hours is classed as historic anyway. So it makes no difference whether it was 100 years ago,
okay,
or it was 20 days ago or something.
Yeah.
The system will work the same. So a witch hunt on that front, I don't think so. I don't think so. So, but when we look at the R word, right, we have to have the basic intent, that the intent was there, right? There is no defence of drunkenness. So we can't rely on that one. There has to have been penetration. That must have taken place, right? And if it was by the vagina, anus, or mouth, that has to be specified in the charge. If it's after 2004, which one of them is. So he's forced someone to give him a blowjob, right? Okay, it carries a life.
Well, do you know, John, there was something that we read out that apparently there was rumors of forced oral R, and I'm pretty sure it was meant to be a 16-year-old.
Yeah, well, the age of consent is 16. If it had been under that, he'd have been in a world of trouble. But when we get assault and S assault, so indecent and the S assault, right? It can be any part of the body, and it can be in or over clothing, under clothing, it doesn't matter. And it can involve kissing. So he could have forced someone to kiss him or whatever. Okay, so and that carries 10 years. That does. That's a 10-year sentence. Now, when that person's saying about the evidence, well, firstly, right, there's going to be evidence from interviewing witnesses. So they've obviously interviewed the witnesses. So 4 separate witnesses have interviewed and stated that they are the victim's informant and witness to Russell Brand and what he's done, right? So they stated that. They will also have to back up a statement from witnesses. So there may well be witnesses, medical evidence, or people that are with him or whatever, right? Medical evidence is also required. It's not compulsory, but it goes a long way. Digital evidence. Now, this is a big one. Telephones, text messages, emails, things like that. And also they'll be looking at basing the charging decision on the suspect interview, what he did or didn't say. Okay. And that'll all be dependent on the presence or absence of evidence that they've disclosed to Brand. All right. So that's what we're looking at. So the police would have needed evidence. They would have needed statements, witness interviews, victim interviews, medical evidence, digital evidence. All right. They then put that through to the CPS. Right. So that goes through to the CPS. Now, because it is S offending, it has to, by law, be dealt with by a special department. Right. A special department of the CPS. They're the ones who make the decision to charge, not the police. If the police haven't got all their ducks in a row, the CPS can't proceed. In order to proceed, they need evidence, and that evidence has to be reliable and credible. So they obviously deemed the witnesses as reliable and as credible. And there's multiple witnesses here, right? There's not just one, there's four. And they span a 6-year period. So in my opinion, it's not looking very good, okay? The presence of evidence which could undermine the case, they need to look at that. So if there is evidence present that's going to diminish the case, right, then the CPS must take that into consideration. And there's also a thing called public interest. Is it in the public interest to proceed with this? Well, I'd say yes, because of the absolute severity of the case. But Brand has been given bail. So in his favour, he's not deemed a risk to the victims or in any way to hinder justice. Now, he may well be going down that line at the moment with his social media. I think he's got to be very, very careful what he puts out. So if I was him, I'd shut my mouth. I would think it would be very, very prudent. Now, for me, I've interviewed these people, right? I've interviewed them. And unlike criminals who make no comment and their governor ain't going to say anything, right? They make no comment. When you get offenders, now he's only suspected of it, right? He's charged. He's suspected of it right now. He is now the accused, but he's not been found guilty. However, he's gobbing off, which for me is a massive red flag. Massive, massive red flag. I would say the sensible thing here is to say nothing until this case is dealt with. Right. Now, the main issue that he's going to rely on, prosecution and defense are going to rely on, is consent. Right. So the prosecution is saying that there was no consent. He's gobbing off that there was. And it's obvious that he's been charged with the R stuff, that there was no consent. Consent was withdrawn or not given, right? Now, the consent issue, right? There's no consent if force is used. So he could have used force. He could have used force. And that would have negated consent, right? There could have been implied force, the threat of force, right? Now, when we saw that Channel 4 documentary, when we listened to the witnesses, and I have no reason to disbelieve them, right? They all said that his eyes changed and he wouldn't take no for an answer, right? Now, and they said he was quite sinister. Now, would that be implied force, that the threat of force was there? The other one is duress. Duress. Now, you know, felt under pressure to do it, right? And that's not uncommon for offenders to use duress to pressure someone into something, right? And also we've got to look at, was deception used? Was he deceptive in what he did, right? And how he got them to consent? Was there a promise of fame or something like that? Something which Savile used to do. Bear in mind, we're seeing patterns here with the entertainment industry, you know, and isn't it funny? If someone is ugly, we can instantly tarnish them as guilty. But when they're good looking and they're charismatic, you get people starting to side with them. I've looked at the comments because I put a post on my social media about the podcast of James English and the fact that he...
Wait, we can't talk about that.
Oh, we can't. Oh, okay. All right. Well,
but we can't talk about that. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Because I know exactly what you're thinking.
It's just the comments. I was going to go on about the comments.
Yeah, no, we can't. We're not allowed.
Regarding him and the fact, you know. Anyway, but then we got to look, right, at the witnesses. Now, certain things, you know, might impact consent. Did any of them have severe mental health problems?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Were any of them bipolar? Because we're looking at mentally defective people here, and that would then withdraw consent, negate consent.
Okay.
Dementia, anyone subject to the provisions of the Mental Health Act. And another one is unconsciousness.
Right.
And it's not uncommon for people who commit R and that to rohypnol people, roofie them, as it's saying, you know. Now, he's going to be looking at his defences, right? And now we're going to get onto some of the CPS stuff in a minute, right? So when you interview someone,
yeah,
you if they make no comment or something, you go through the statutory defences. What are the statutory defences? You know, you can lawfully kill someone, but there needs to be a statutory defence in place in order for you to do that, right? One of the defences is accident. Like, so if we look at the end assault and the S assault, right? Not so much the R stuff, but the assault stuff. It could have been accidental. He could have accidentally touched that person there, right? So Russell Brand, did you accidentally touch someone? Did you accidentally touch someone in a private and intimate manner? Did you accidentally trip, fall on someone and kiss them and put your tongue in their mouth? This is the sort of things you'll be asking. Was it an accident? If I was interviewing him now and he made no comment, I said, well, let's look at the accident. Well, what's your alibi then? If you're saying you didn't do it, what is your alibi? Were you elsewhere? Were you, in another country? What is it? Are you going to provide an alibi so we can check the facts and prove the lies? Is there an alibi? We'll only find out when this goes to trial. There's a thing called automatism. There's quite an infamous case in statute law where someone swerved the car and killed someone, right? And then they went up for a manslaughter charge. But what happened is a wasp had got in the car and stung the person, and they'd flipped about everything else, lost control. It's automatism. They wasn't able. It's something that the body did naturally.
Right, I'm with you.
You could accidentally, some people have like tics, don't they? Like Tourette's.
Yeah, John, honestly, a jogger ran past me from behind with my headphones in, walking past the canal, and I almost threw her in the canal. I jumped out my skin.
There's things like that, and especially if you're suffering from PTSD, you might have this.
Yeah.
I get it sometimes. I cannot stand anyone being behind me talking. I freeze, right? And I get it's something that's really etched into my psyche just through trauma,
Yeah.
And there's a thing called parasomnia. Someone has been killed whilst another person's been sleepwalking, and they've actually accidentally got hold of them and killed them. There have been cases of parasomnia, right? Medication can cause that. So Russell Brown, was you on any medication that caused a sort of automatism which made your body spasmodically grab someone's knockers, for example, we got that, right? Collusion. Here's one, collusion. Do you know, there's something really interesting, and what you've got to look at are the comments that you get now, right? Look at the comments from women, because, right, this is something very, very interesting. When I was at an R trial at the Old Bailey, right, there was a guy who had R'd kids, and a barrister told me, he said his barrister will be telling him to pick a female jury, as many women as possible on the jury. And I went, why? That doesn't make sense. He said, John, there's an old adage in the legal world, and when it's to do with